I am Zanzi. You are listening to Farmers Inside Track, proudly brought to you by Food from Zanzi. My name is Patricia Tembo, your host, and welcome to today's episode. Our farmer mentor for today is Thabo Phasha, who is a Gen Z farmer, but he has over 10 years of experience. Let's get into his story. Thabo Phasha, welcome to Farmers Inside Track. You're our farmer mentor today, which is so exciting. I got to meet you at the recent Limpopo Farming Day. I was so excited, remember I approached you, nope, you are going to be a farmer mentor of us. So I'm glad we're here.
Absolutely.
Super excited to hear your story. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. And this is a great opportunity, man, and a great platform to voice out as a young person our challenges and to just voice out our experiences and get to learn from each other.
So Thabo, you are a very busy body. You've accomplished a lot already. You are leading a FASA youth and you're also part of the World Food Forum, representing. Tell us a little bit more about that, but also just how farming began for you. Walk us through the beginnings and just maybe your background.
My journey into agriculture began at a young age through family farming activities and also just being part of a generational farming background. So I'm also a third generational farmer. Because of this, it really helped me develop a passion for agriculture and agribusiness from an early stage. And from that, just getting into high school, my fascination for land, it continued, man. Even after I finished high school, I was more interested in actually just starting my own production and just getting into it. But I realized that, I have a lot to learn from the industry and also from even my own parents. And then since then, it's just been a matter of getting to involve myself in farmers' days, involve myself in events where farmers get to voice out their challenges. And just fast forwarding, just a couple of years later on, then managed to connect with quite influential young people within the country from AFASA and also from other farmers' organizations around the country and around the globe. And then since then, it's just their way up, if I can put it that way.
So you mentioned you're a third generation farmer. What did farming look like for your parents and your grandparents? What was that like?
So just giving you a short background on my grandparents and getting my parents. I come from a background of entrepreneurs, and this is from both sides of my family, where my mom's side of the family, they were more into retail. And then on my dad's side, they were more into agricultural production. So my dad growing up, what he would do is that his dad would always plant tomatoes. And if not tomatoes, you'd be able to be planting your cabbages and then your spinaches, just local cash crops, basically, the crops that are mostly used in households. So my granddad, what he would do is that he would be planting all of these and you'd get to just sell them around the community. Nothing in the form of a large scale whatsoever then. So my dad learned from him, and then seeing him do what he was doing. When my late granddad passed on, my dad just continued with the work, and my dad also got to venture into other things. But it was just more of subsistence farming, if I can put it in a simpler form. It was more about subsistence. Yeah. And then from there, then I just learned, and then I saw what they were doing, and then I picked it up. And then I was like, why not, man? Let me see what's happening with this agriculture.
Yeah, it does sound like obviously farming has been in your family and it passed on to you, which is pretty cool. But you mentioned that you were interested in agriculture since high school. From the sounds of it, obviously your family shaped that interest. When you leave high school, there's so many options that you could have gone into. Maybe talk us through why agriculture stood out specifically for you. And did you study agriculture in tertiary? Just a deeper understanding into why you chose agriculture.
In high school, I always had the love for agriculture because during holidays, I'd get to go to my grandparents' house, and then I'd also get to see what they had already been planting there. And then just likewise from there onwards, I finished high school. But now, like you're saying, that the challenge comes in, what is it that I want to do? So for me, having to go into an agricultural course wasn't something that I wanted to do because I already knew the skills. I have the technical skills for production. So it wasn't much of a major issue for me, but rather the main concern was, how do I make myself knowledgeable about the administrative work that is required for me to be a great agricultural businessman, if I can put it that way. And it took me back to knowing the basics of business. And I actually wanted to not go to college or university told my parents, I was like, you know what, I'm dropping out. I'm just going to work on the land and this is what I'm going to do. But along the conversations that I had with my parents, they actually advised me. They sat me down and they said, my boy, you love business and we see the direction that you're going as a more entrepreneurial. So we don't want you to go into this industry without knowing the perks and the challenges that will be experienced by a business owner. So I was supposed to actually have started with a 6-month course of business management, but I ended up actually from the get-go, from registration, I told myself that, you know, let me just make a diploma in business management. So I studied a business management at Boston City College. And from there, it really set a good foundation for me in terms of running a business on day to day. From there, then I just built from the theoretical knowledge that I learned from the institution. Then I just integrated it with my personal technical experience of production and agriculture. And then I just ran with it in that direction. And then along the way, fast forward as well, I got into the opportunity as well to engage with Spar Rural Hub. So also in my previous endeavors, got to the opportunity to be mentored very successful agricultural business owners. And along the lines of that, they did introduce me to Spar Rural Hub. And along the way there, I got into training for pesticides and chemicals. So I'm currently certified for pest control and all the chemicals and. So from there onwards, then I had an opportunity to also get to go AgriCETA, which they had a course for agribusiness skills development, which I also went through with them, which was very interesting learning curve there. That's my experience. And overall, have over a decade of experience being in business and running other people's businesses as well in between.
I love that you've already set the tone of like farming as a business, because I think that's something that a lot of, especially funding institutions, want farmers to really get into their mentality, like you are running a business. So it needs to be approached in that way, which is why we interview farmers like yourself to, you know, just give that sort of an understanding for those who might be listening or running their own farms or wanting to run their own farms, what it takes to actually have a farming business that's sustainable. So your business, let's get into that. What are you farming? What does production look like?
I'm into grain, so I'm responsible for grain within my province. I'm actually based in Limpopo, and I currently have 2 farms. One is based in Sekhukhune in Fetagom, which is smaller, which is a 5-hectare, and then currently expanded to another portion, which is 100 hectares plus, which we will be expanding our grain there. And when I mean grain, specifically into yellow maize, as I'm into field of agro-processing for feeds along the lines of, so preparing the land to put it to my producers. And then from there onwards, then it's preparation. I keep a crop rotation of beans as well to keep the nutrients level.
Your main crop is yellow maize.
Yes.
And you produce mainly for livestock feed?
Mostly for livestock producers. So I'm currently contracted to commercial livestock producers. So in your cattle, and then as well as your pigs and your poultry and small stock, which is your goats. That's how I'm structured, or how my eggs are structured, basically. Yeah.
You've diversified by agro-processing as well. Maybe give us a little an idea of what that looks like in your business.
Since I just literally just started with agro-processing, it's actually quite a very lengthy and very attention demanding, if I can put it that way. And also getting to know the composition, the type of feeds that you actually want to produce. So for small stock and your poultries and your livestock, like your cattle and the likes of, they require different compositions of their feeds, mixtures, because of their sizes, of course, and because of the differences as animals, of course. The mixtures are quite intensive. Getting to know what you're mixing in your feed is very important. So right now for me, it's mostly just getting to look at my mixtures, just pre-planning and having them on standby until after harvest. So that's what it looks like. It's nothing too complicated. I just have proper systems in place.
I'm going to pick your brain a little bit later on how you actually are managing the different entities or enterprises that you have. Let's look into how you've actually managed to scale the business. You said you're a 3rd generation farmer. I think you have mentioned that you did pick up where your parents or grandparents left off. How have you been able to expand the business from, you know, what you were started with or what you were given? What has the process of actually growing it and making it sustainable look like?
I have a very good supportive structure. that's how I was able to actually scale the business. Nothing else, because starting a business really requires a lot of capital injection. And I was really privileged enough to have siblings as well as my own parents to be very supportive in financing, because it was really difficult. I'm the person that found a backlog in every department that you could think of in terms of our compliances and from the likes of sort of stopping production. I set my family down and I told them that this is what I want to do and this is what the returns will look like, just being consistent. And they fell in love with the dream because they saw from my actions, if I can put it that way, that I was actually hungry and it's something that's just in me to just go for it. So they were like, you know what? Let's support you the best way that we can. So they helped me get from PPE, from fertilizers, from seeds. Literally, if it wasn't for a good family structure, man, I don't know where I would be, honest. I don't know where I would find myself. I don't even know how I'd get you, man. But yeah, that structure.
And that's quite important to share because to start, you need capital, as you've mentioned. And once someone has acquired this, that's not the end of like the journey. That's where it's really beginning. And I don't know if you know the show, I Blew It. So it's so easy to actually like lose that money or to invest it in ways that don't yield any sort of return. But you've managed to create a business like that. It's already like, I suppose something farmers listening would be very interested in. You obviously studied business management, but like, how did you know which contracts or partnerships to say yes to, which ones to say no to? Things like that. So looking at the factors that have helped you, of course, you were fortunate enough to have the capital, but I think being able to properly steward that capital is like really where that nugget of wisdom is with you. Like how you, the discipline.
Yeah. I think the important thing is to just know yourself, know the type of person that you are. Firstly, I'm just going to address the spending habits and having the discipline in terms of your spending and also having people that are accountable to you. I never make deals with people that are lone survivors. I don't do that because that means that they don't have a dependency on anyone. So it means that anything can go wrong at any time and you can just immediately just drop me. But people that have systems in place where you are accountable to other people, that's where you can create structures and be able to be corrected. Because from my side, I also got the opportunity to have other mentors. So they're the ones that whenever that I would say, yo, I want to buy fertilizer for 50,000 and they'll be like, instead of having to buy that for fertilizer, not saying that I have 50,000 guys, by the way, but just as an example to just say wanting to buy the 50,000 fertilizer, then they'll say, no, man, instead of buying that, why don't you just go to any livestock farmer that's around locally? Just go offer them maybe say for a ton of their fertilizer or cow dung, if I can put it that way, to give it to you at a discount of maybe 5,000 Rand or 10,000, negotiate your way out of it. And then the other remaining amount, you could use it for other things like your diesel and along the lines of. So I had a very good accountability structure. And then the second thing is that having an accountability structure is one thing. It's also another thing being able to listen to the advices that they give you. So be willing to be flexible. Sometimes you might find yourself even having to find yourself getting a part-time job so that you can be able to make excess income, which I also did find myself in at some point throughout my life that I had to just get a part-time and be able to make excess income. So I did that and it really, really did help a lot. At first, I was a bit prideful and arrogant about it, but the truth of the matter is that the money doesn't grow on trees. You have to work for it. So I took that with me. And then also the other thing is collaboration. Don't be afraid to collaborate. Your next breakthrough is with collaboration. So once you have those systems in place, having your accountability structures, and then you go to what else? And also I think one thing that I could just throw in as well is never stop moving, even if it's hard. Don't stop moving. Just being consistent, disciplined and consistent in the work that you do. And be quick to move on your mistakes or your failures. Just be quick and always keep moving. And I think maybe an analogy that I really like, I recently learned of, it was the story of the buffalo, that whenever that it's raining or a storm is coming, a buffalo heads in the direction of the storm. And I thought to myself, hey man, that's what I've been doing my entire life. So just to the young people to say that whenever that you're going through the storms, man, just go through it. Just be consistent. Rather be wrong and be corrected than be wrong and not be doing anything at all. And it's just an idea. And that's all that it will be.
With the challenges, as you've mentioned, that, something that you stick by is to always keep moving. So, of course, farming is difficult. Like, I don't know why people paint it out sometimes to be like some sort of utopia. Like, obviously, it's very rewarding and it's so important, but it is difficult. And, farmers face challenges. So, for yourself, what have some of those challenges been and how did you navigate them, Thabo?
Taking it from the start, like having to register your own company. I have no clue about that. And also getting to know about, like how do we get to supply like local stores? How do we get to have these large offtake agreements? The only way that I could get them is to connect with people. So it always goes back to people and collaboration.
Yeah.
If you're not willing to take the time to make phone calls to our Pick and Pay and the likes of your Boxer, and you will never know on what is my next step. So I inquired from all of these retailers, if I can put it that way, and I learned from them to say this is what their compliance or this is what is required from a farmer before they supply them. Taking that information, I'll take it to my mentors. Though my mentors, one thing I loved about them is that they never blatantly gave me answers or just, spoon fed me, but they said, okay, oh, you did a great job getting this information. Now your next step is actually finding the ways to get each certificate or each compliance certificate, if I can put it that way. And from there, then your departments, like your Department of Agriculture, even though the young people are quite frustrated by the department, though they are really trying their best. The department is doing their work, the best of getting to show me what is needed and what is not needed. To just say that the challenges, I overcame them by just collaboration and advices from the department.
By the way, what is the name of your farming business? I've been talking and I actually haven't asked you what your farm's name is, like the name of the company.
The name of the company is Global GMT Farming Solutions, but it's Global GMT.
So as I was saying, like you have mentioned several principles that, have guided you so far, which are very like important. But what would you say is the main thing that keeps you on track? What is it that keeps you showing up every day for your business?
The love that I have for people has really just encouraged me to actually keep on doing the work that I do, because we feed nations, man. People need to eat. And what about those that cannot eat? What about them? Because we also need to address that issue as well.
Yeah.
And it's something that's really just on my heart too, that farmers must always consider to always give back. Just setting a portion of I'm going to give it to those that cannot afford to feed themselves. So that's number one, empowering others. It comes in many ways. And then also just having discipline in the work, hard work, integrity, and just looking above the profits. The love that I have for people and having to see the change that I want to see within my communities and in agriculture, let alone that, just keeps me going, man. It keeps me keeps me pumped up even when we have zeros, man. Like, it keeps us going.
No, I love that. It sounds like you found this balance between, having a love for people and, empowering people, but also making sure that your business is sustainable and that it's still profitable, because that is how you are able to empower people, like having a sustainable business. So that balance, I think, is quite beautiful to have. Looking at the legacy that you are continuing, because as you've said, you are a third generation farmer. So you are continuing what your parents and grandparents have started, and you are pushing it further, but in your own way, also creating, innovating, of course, because you're Gen Z. So what is the legacy you'd like to leave behind? And maybe with that, you can share a little bit more about your role in AFASA Youth as well as the World Food Forum and how that ties into your legacy as Thabo Phasha.
I hope to leave a legacy of, I'd say, a change in South African policy in terms of our agri-food systems, a legacy of youth empowerment, sustainable farming, and having helped other farmers build a stronger agricultural businesses, and also to strengthen or make our agricultural sector much, much more stronger. That creates jobs and supports rural communities. And for me, it's the advocacy for the youth communities. There's tendencies of sometimes being neglected because of the social economic challenges that we may find ourselves in. And sometimes it really gets very difficult for every person. Overall, that's the kind of legacy. I want to leave a legacy of change and to say that the young people can do anything, man. And getting into AFASA as well for our young farmers is to leave them with tangible or other technical skills that will be able to help them acquire tangible results.
Yeah.
And as well as and also just being able to advocate for them in terms of policy. I think for me, one of the biggest things that I've learned from both the provincial side of it, of being a part of Africa's Farming Association and also being a part of the World Food Forum, is that most of it just needs an advocacy of policies, because policies are the ones that unlock and the turnaround time of applications, and also the voices of the youth farmers to the departments, to the officials, to parliament. Even I think taking it to that extent that the turnaround time is all dependent on policy. So for me, I would really just like to leave a legacy of changed policy in agricultural food systems, and also seeing the transformation in agricultural food systems in my country and around the world. And also to see a more collaboration within African continent. And one of the other few things is that our youth farmers are not even aware of the free trade policies and free trade agreements that are already in place, that are already opportunities that are already existing, but needing to follow through. They able to access even international markets that they didn't just in town in Gauteng or in Northwest, but they ended up, supplying even as far as your Angola and Cameroon, all the places, just through collaboration and exporting to your third world countries as well. So that's the type of legacy I would like to leave.
And you're in a very suitable position to influence policies, but also like stand for the youth, as in, carry the voice forward to our farmers, young farmers, to influence policies. I think that's quite exciting to know. And also like the other way around, where you are able to also explain policies. As you said, there are a lot of farmers, young farmers, who aren't even aware of the free trade agreements. So you being in the position to bring that awareness of certain policies that, farmers can benefit from understanding. Okay, Thabo, so wrapping up this really cool conversation we're having, what advice would you have for a new farmer? Because I think you also attend a lot of industry events. And a lot of the older generation people like saying like, oh, we need to make agriculture cool for the young people. Like, I don't know if you've heard that. I hear it a lot. Perceptions of agriculture. And I think for the youth, they're generally discouraged from pursuing agriculture because whether you're working in industry or actually starting to have your own farming business, it just seems like there's this huge challenge and hurdle of getting into those doors, those opportunities. What advice do you have for a young farmer who's wanting to be a farmer, like, going to farming, but they're just like, I don't know how I'm going to get funding. Like, all of you just sound so far away. What's your advice?
My advice to new farmers, man, is to start where they are. When they start where they are, they get to assess their needs and their wants in terms of having to start a business. So they're going to be looking at prioritizing their needs. Being patient and consistent, they play hand in hand. You cannot have one and not have the other. And agriculture just requires quite a lot of commitment, continuous learning, and the ability to adapt to challenges and opportunities. So for our young people, start where you are. Don't overcomplicate things. You can start in your own backyard. I'll give an example with myself that before I even went into getting into large scale, I started just planting in my own backyard. I had a couple of seeds, tomato, and then it was beetroot, and then it was also spinach. So those were my first 3 crops that I planted literally at the backyard. And then from there, then I realized, okay, I can actually expand from here. Just so don't overcomplicate what is simple. Opening a business, just having to write down your needs and your wants. And then from there, just prioritizing on what you can get done. If you do not have the funds to even start your own business, you can go to institutions like your CEDFA, your NYDA. You can also go to even the Department of Agriculture for them to be able to assist you. But even moreover, I'm getting to connect with organized farmer structures like AFASA and other farmers organizations, getting to just engage with them. We are here and we are here for you. So we help them also in terms of pre-production plannings and so just associating yourself with people that have already done the work. Being connected, man. Just being learning on that.
You answered that really. That's very encouraging, helpful for a young farmer.
Yeah, try it.
For a farmer who's wanting to get into it, like you said, keep it simple. Start with what you have, and also like joining organizations, because that also connects you to the right people who will have some answers to the questions. Hey, Thabo, I don't know if you have any final words that you would like to leave on the podcast. Hopefully we'll have you again sometime in the future, but for now, is there anything that you maybe want to touch on that you haven't?
We're young people that are fearless and that are ready to advocate for all of the problems that we are experiencing, not just in agriculture, but in every aspect of what makes a country a country. I see that revolution coming. If there won't be any change, we will be the catalysts of that change. We are already catalyzed such platforms like from Zanzi, allowing us these platforms. This is part of the movement. And if things don't change, we as the youth, we will make our country change. By fire, by force, man.
By fire, by
People
force.
need to eat. Our young people on the ground, guys, stay fired up. Change is coming and they will be part of that change. That's one thing is for sure.
Thank you so much, Thabo, for joining us on Farmers Inside Track as our farmer mentor for today. I really enjoyed speaking to you, and I think our farmers who are listening gathered very important bits of wisdom and advice that you have from your own journey. Thank you so much.
Oh man, a privilege. I've been to just be on a great platform such as this to voice out my experiences, challenges, and I'm really grateful for this opportunity. And yeah, guys, see you guys at a Farmer's Day. I don't know which one.
Yeah.
But we'll see you guys later. I hate goodbyes.
Thank you so much to Thabo Phasha for being our farmer mentor for this episode. Of course, if you'd like to read his story, you can definitely visit www.foodfromzanzi.co.za. And that brings us to the end of this episode. Remember to subscribe to our podcast on all your favorite platforms. And that's it from myself, Patricia Tembo, our technical producer, Megan van der Vent, and the rest of #Team Food for Mzansi. Thank you for listening and keep growing with us.